SMQBs, this is episode 147. It is Super Wild Card weekend, and there are some happy people sitting here right now as a result of the games. But before we get into all the action, Pope, who are you bringing to the bar to chat with this week?
Same guy that I had last week, but we got a little bit more to discuss today. Probably dragging his ass to the bar, by the way. Either that or finding him there, unrecognizable. But Mike McCarthy, as they say, got some splaining to do. You had the number one offense. You had a great defense. You had home field advantage. We'll get into all that on my papal rant here in a minute. But I'm going to have a beer with him and probably going to hit him over the head with the beer stein.
Rooster, who do you got? Who are you bringing?
I think I'd like to have a beer with the guy we punched last week, the owner of the Panthers, and see if I could provoke him with my question to throw a drink at me by asking him how he feels about trading up to draft Bryce Young now.
Would that be a $300,000
after the amazing CJ Shroud performance?
Yeah. House, what about you?
Can we do Dead or Alive?
Yeah.
I think we'd be remiss if we didn't recognize today. So I really would like to have a drink with one of my heroes, Martin Luther King Jr., and I'd like to talk some football with him and tell him that the most impressive performances of this weekend, he wouldn't believe it, but they were made by black quarterbacks, which weren't even in the NFL for a very long time. I looked up something today. It wasn't until like one of the Steelers Super Bowls that there was even a black MVP of a Super Bowl when Franco Harris became Super Bowl MVP. There's been
who was that guy? James. What was that guy? That skinny guy, number 17, the quarterback for the Steelers.
Oh. For the Steelers? You're not talking about
the first black quarterback for the Steelers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Gillum, maybe.
But Doug Williams was the first black quarterback MVP, wasn't he?
Yes.
Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first black quarterback to start a Super Bowl.
Yeah. Good one, House.
Yeah, that is a good one. Well, I'm going to stick sort of with that theme, House. I'm bringing Jordan Love to the bar because I just want to buy him drink after drink after drink.
Yeah.
And thank him for ruining Dallas's playoff chances, for ruining their whole plan, for causing heartburn to the entire city and ownership and the whole team. So, Jordan Love, I'm buying you all the drinks, buddy.
You could easily have done that with Matt LaFleur as well.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So, Pope, I think you asked for the floor here. I think maybe you have something you want to get off your chest, maybe?
Yeah, this is going to be like kind of part Stephen A., part Skip Bayless, part Michael Irvin.
I want to see the Michael Irvin part.
Michael Irvin was not happy. I think you guys, I sent you guys that text. He said, look, when you come to the Cowboys, you got championship. They got a championship. You go get a championship. I put my championship on the table. Where is your championship? Where is it? All your asses need to go. That's pretty much what Michael said. And
that was really right up there with House's impersonation of Stephen A.
I think Pope's was better.
I could do more over the top, but I'm going to spare you guys. Look, 29 years now since Dallas has played in the NFC Championship game. That is an unbelievable drought, longest, obviously, in sporting history for a team. 48
that
points.
That can't be right.
No way.
That can't be right. Washington hasn't been there longer than Dallas.
Well, it just feels longer. We've been in the playoffs more than y'all have, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, the Packers own the Cowboys, whether it's regular season or playoffs. They're 6-0 at AT&T Stadium. They might as well have it, be called their own home. Dallas gave up 48 points at home, which is second most all time to the Washington. I don't even know. Were they the Redskins back in 1940 when they gave up 73 points to the Bears?
To the Bears, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're a historic first time number 2 seed loses to a number 7 seed. Dak Prescott's playoff record is 2-5. Tony Romo's was 2-4. Aikman's, even though he won 3 Super Bowls after the third Super Bowl, Aikman was 1-3. Just a history of 8 times they were eliminated in the one and done. Jerry, it's the definition of an insanity. What you continue to do the same thing over and over and hope for a different result. The coaching staff, the players, whatever, they did not come out ready to play. Did they not take the Packers serious? I mean, we've been talking all week. The Packers were 6-2 coming into this game. Jordan Love, 18 touchdowns, 1 interception over his last 8 games. They were one of the hottest teams in the NFL. They've owned the Cowboys in the playoffs. It's Mike McCarthy's former team. How the fuck could they not take him seriously? Did not show up in the first quarter. Dak and CD were clearly already, there was a disconnect between them on the first drive. When they had that one on third down, they had the slant to CD and Dak missed him, and CD probably could have caught it, but it was a horrible throw. It was just mind-boggling. The text thread between myself and my Cowboy fan guys was just after the first series when the Packers took it 8-minute drive, to a man, we were all like, we are in trouble. This is after the first series of a game that we were favored by 7 points. The scar tissue and PTSD from 29 years of losing in the playoffs is profound, and it's going to get deeper. And now we got to decide, and we can debate this. We got to decide if McCarthy comes back. Does Dak get an extension on his contract? I think what we decided today as a group of our Cowboy friends is that we are held hostage by the Jones family. They're not going to get a coach like a Harbaugh and turn the football operation over. They're not going to get Belichick because he's not going to take orders from Jerry Jones and his meddling. They're not going to get another head coach with, McCarthy's pedigree and his ability to play call and turn Dak into an MVP caliber quarterback. They're just going to, what did I tell you guys? Last year when this happened, I said, it doesn't matter when they lost to San Francisco. I said, whatever happens in the regular season, they could go 17-0, and it doesn't fucking matter unless they win in the playoffs. And when I say win, I mean at least go to the championship game. An utter failure. It's a fucking dumpster fire here in Dallas. It may be 20 degrees outside, but it better be 800 degrees under Jerry Jones' ass to get something going.
I mean, isn't it just something that we've all sort of known, and that is that the Cowboys just basically suck? I mean, they just suck. They're just not good. I mean,
the argument can be made that they beat up on bad teams, that they inflated their stats all year long.
If you can't win on the road, you can't expect to be a good playoff team.
That they were 4-4 against teams with winning records, and shouldn't have probably beat Detroit. We talked about that. They lost the big games that mattered, Buffalo and Miami, when they had an opportunity, but not knowing that the Eagles would implode, an opportunity to secure home field. They had the same record as the Niners. Now, you could argue the Niners gave up against the Rams in the last game, but they were tied for the best record in the NFC, and they just stunk up the joint, and it's just not explainable what the fuck is going on.
But wait a minute.
As they prepare for the playoffs.
Well, there is this phenomenon called playoff Dak, right?
Yeah, but what about playoff Tony Romo? 2-4.
I know, but I don't know why that happens to your quarterbacks.
But wait a second, guys. I mean, everybody's blaming or wants to blame Dak, but I mean, how many points did the defense give up?
Oh, the defense
41.
got smoked.
They gave up 41 points because, I don't know, Dak had a pick 6. Actually,
right.
You could argue they only should have given up 34.
They almost had 2 pick sixes.
The other interception was on the 19, and then they scored 2 plays later.
Right. He got up and ran it in, but he touched his foot to the. I mean,
Dan Quinn, we played man all year. Then all of a sudden we show up and play a soft zone. Just got picked apart. No pressure on the quarterback. Jordan Love had time all day to pick and choose. And then they would sell out, and the coverages would get busted. And how about that touchdown in the second half? The guy had like 30 yards before a defender could even get to him.
Right. I watched the game at a friend's house who's a Packers fan, and like all Packers fans, he's insane about the weather. So we watched the game outside at his house around a fire pit, freezing my ass off. He's got the screen outside, and I was the first one there, and he said, you're on this podcast. What do you think is going to happen? And I said, I picked the Packers in our last show. And the reason is I think Jordan Love is going to have a CJ Shroud type of game. And Aaron Jones is the most underrated running back in all of football. And I think all they're going to have to do is like double cover Lamb every time and have somebody whose only job on offense to absolutely stone Micah Parsons when he's rushing. And Aaron Jones did that. You see him, he hit him right in the chest and hurt him.
Yeah.
And Micah didn't have a lot to offer after that. The offense is not very imaginative, the Cowboys offense.
Let's talk about second down. We ran the ball like 6 times.
Compare that to LaFleur's offense looked like something that Michael McDaniel or Shanahan put together. It was amazing. It was very well run.
So let's talk about that for a second, though, because
he is in the Shanahan coaching tree.
Yep.
As much as a hand wringing as there is in Dallas, I mean, does Green Bay get some credit here? Does Jordan Love get some credit?
I think they get a ton of credit.
I mean, Jordan Love is playing out of his mind right now.
It's all come together for them right now. And they're the youngest team in football.
Yeah,
the Packers
youngest team to win a playoff game ever.
The Packers have a nice young team. They will give San Francisco zero scare whatsoever. Jordan Love, it's nice to see him come along after sitting on the bench. But can we not, let's really talk about the problem in Dallas. It's a culture problem, and it starts at the top. And if I'm a Dallas fan, I am getting thousands of people lined up with me with pitchforks, with gas lamps, whatever it is, and I am marching to Jerry World, and I'm saying, do something, move on, turn it over to somebody. I don't care, the kid, whatever. You suck. And what you've created with your giant ego is a team filled with egos that all the time they're talking about, all the time in Dallas. It's, well, did I get that record? Make sure it's all about individual achievements. That's the problem. I mean, yeah, we can give Green Bay some credit, but guess what? You're not going to have a 49ers team that leaves 17 and a half yards of a receiver open. You don't need credit. Anybody could have thrown that pass to Musgrave for that touchdown. There wasn't somebody within 20 yards. It was the largest gap in the NFL this season between a defense and a receiver.
And that happened twice.
This team has a culture problem. Oh, we have so many pick sixes. Oh, Trevon Diggs has so many interceptions. No, what are you doing as a team? That's what I say. Stephen A. nailed it. Dak comes out and says, we set the standard. The standard for what? The standard for losing? The standard was set by the Cowboys teams before that played as a team. Those teams that actually did something. What is the standard he set? They're just so full of themselves. It's so annoying.
How about the
fact
I'm
so happy they lost?
That Jerry Jones, said the happiest moment in his football lifetime.
Yeah.
And he's got 3 Lombardis and all kinds of other, victories, was when Dolly Parton sang at halftime in a Cowboy cheerleader outfit and Dallas demolished Washington. He said that was the highlight of his entire career for football. That tells you everything you need to know
He
about the
clearly needs to
culture
go into
of
like
Dallas
an
Cowboys
assisted
football.
living facility place, right? I mean, the guy went on and on about a glory hole recently without knowing what the hell that is.
Well, he's been done that. That's nothing new.
I mean,
it's a running. It's a running.
He just needs to be put out the pasture.
Are Dallas fans talking about whether or not Dan Quinn already had a job and therefore didn't prepare the way he needed to?
No, there's no discussion about that.
I would hire Dan Quinn as a head coach right now.
Dan Quinn, for whatever game plan he drew up wasn't working. He didn't make any changes. He didn't move on the fly when it was obvious that the Packers were going to run the ball down their throat. But look, guys, what happened in the Buffalo game? James Cook had over 200 yards rushing. They got gashed all year by good running teams, and LaFleur took advantage of that. I mean, by establishing the run first, they allowed Love to pick them apart. That's winning football. And, shame on McCarthy and Quinn for not figuring out that's where they were coming from.
There was a deep middle end that was thrown to Dobbs about 3-4 times in the first half, and no adjustment was made whatsoever at halftime.
Right over the middle.
Did not take away that pass at all.
Yep.
That's
hey, can we talk about the other guy behind you there, House?
Yeah.
CJ Shroud?
Yeah.
Let's move on to more pleasant things.
Rookie quarterback just dissects one of the best defenses in all of football, the Browns.
Browns were like everybody had possible Browns going to Baltimore. I mean, they did not give any chance to the Texans to win that game.
They did not.
I was wrong. I thought that CJ Stroud was amazing. He's played himself into the upper echelon of quarterbacks, not the top tier, but up there.
We'll see.
And that the rest of the team might just suffer from we're just so happy to be here. We may peter out at this stage. He put them on his back and kept them going. I don't think he's going anywhere against the Ravens, but that's an amazing outcome for a rookie quarterback on that team.
And look at his coach, D'Amico Ryans, would not let them be satisfied with just making the playoffs.
Do you know what his rating was yesterday?
It was like 157.
Perfect. Was it fourth best ever?
157.2. Jeez.
That was some of the throws he made were absolutely incredible, way beyond his years. And that was a team that played great team football. He's down one of his major receivers.
Yeah. And then Brown got hurt.
He's out.
Brown got hurt too. So, I mean, CJ Stroud is for real. There's no question about that. Ohio State is off the schneid. And like you said, the Panthers, I don't even know what you're thinking if you're that owner. And by the way, not enough is said about the balls that it took for Houston to not only get Stroud, but to trade up and make sure they got Will Anderson, who's been ridiculous. He's so good. And he was fantastic in that game too. They literally changed that team with a couple of picks in the first round, one draft, and some young guys. They just overnight changed that team.
And their coach.
Yeah, coach is amazing.
Yep. All right, so we got those two games, and then
the Bills are up 31-17 right now.
Yeah, and we got to talk about. I mean, I think the Dolphins-Chiefs game wasn't really much of a surprise. There wasn't really. I don't know that there's a whole lot. I mean, the weather was obviously. You see Mahomes' helmet break.
Yeah, right.
Cold, but I think that sort of played out, sort of the way everybody thought it would.
But that kind of goes back to my comment last week. If you're the Dolphins, you're in a dilemma. You're sort of like the dilemma that Hope was describing with the Cowboys and Dak. You've got a quarterback who during the season is in the discussion for the MVP for a while, Tua, and is running the greatest show on turf for a little while there. But it's pretty clear that he's never going to go into a cold weather outdoor stadium and win a playoff game. So how far are you going to go with this guy? And what are you going to do about it? Because you've got a great coach, you've got a great system, you've got great talent on offense, and Tua is going to win you all your home games and lose against the good teams on the road and be terrible in cold weather if you make it to the playoffs. So you've got to basically count on home field advantage through the playoffs in order to go anywhere as the Dolphins with that guy as your quarterback. I think they've got a problem.
Yeah. They also need some defensive help too. I mean,
they were decimated by the time they got to the playoffs.
Yes.
Wasn't the same
I think between what they've got on offense, those weapons, you just can't rely on, even though they're capable, you can't rely on them scoring 35 points a game in order to stay in a game. Their defense has got to improve. I think the Dolphins are not that far away, and I think they're going to stay as long as they have Waddle and Reek and A-Chain and Tua. I think they're going to be in the mix. They got to fix the defense.
Yeah, there's not a lot of Dolphins fans though who really like Tua as their quarterback. They all think he's the. I talked to a lot of people this weekend, and they all think that he's the weakest link. That the whole offense is set up for him to make one read and get the ball out because he can't. Apparently, people don't think he can make a second or third read.
And he's still fragile, as we know.
Yeah, well, he got his brain scrambled last year.
Well, yeah. Speaking of brain scrambled, did we not all think Stafford was going to potentially have to come out last night?
Yeah. He got hit late. He got late hit twice on the same play.
Hutchins is a thug.
I think Detroit needs to never complain about the refs ever again. Between the roughing the passer, two on one play, and what was definitely there were 3 fouls on the one play. It was holding, pass interference, and a late hit in that ultimate play that would have given them a first down, probably gotten a field goal. That yes, there was still time on the clock, but they were going to take the lead. Yep. But for reffing malpractice, Detroit was going to give up that lead to LA late in that game.
I agree. I think the refs have had the worst year as far as I've been watching the NFL since the early 70s. To me, this is the worst year I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's been horrendous. Just mistakes, missed calls at crucial. I mean, just brutal officiating this year.
Yep.
I mean, that being said, you got to give credit to Detroit, though. I mean, we all had thinking the Rams were potentially going to be trouble for the Niners. Well, didn't get past the Lions.
Yeah, the Rams did look like a team you didn't want to face in the playoffs in Detroit. I have to say I was completely wrong about Dan Campbell. I thought the guy I thought he was going to be a complete joke, a caricature of himself. And that team's gotten better every year since he's taken over, and now he's gotten them to a position where they're a really solid playoff team. The next step for them is for him to step back from in-game management, because I think that's still a weakness of his. Was it the Cowboys game where they decided to go for it on 4th and long instead of kicking the field goal? That it would have ensured victory if they just done what 90% of the analysts think you should do in that situation. He's a little reckless, but I think he's done a hell of a job with the players and motivation and encouraging guys to be themselves and play to their strengths. He's done a hell of a job. He needs a game manager.
What an environment too, right? I mean, that place was pretty fired up for a game, and they're going to get another one next weekend. Yeah. They get another home game.
Yeah.
So I guess we don't know who they're going to be. We don't know who they're going to be playing yet, but it will be in Detroit.
House, what do you think? Come on now, be honest. Milk's not on here.
All right, well, listen.
Yeah.
I was supposed to have the floor first, but fortunately, the Cowboys did a beautiful upstaging.
I'm sure you didn't mind.
I like it's been said a million times on Twitter. Last night's Cowboys loss was the best Eagles game in 2 months.
It was like Christmas.
We're fine now. I mean, we're all ready for the depression of tonight, but it won't really matter because of the embarrassment to Dallas. But I want to say this. I don't like to say never or ever, but I'm not sure that I will ever forgive A.J. Brown. And I'm not sure that I will ever forgive Nick Sirianni, because we should not be coming into this game tonight with a cloud over our heads. And that's what those two in particular have done. It has been well described on this pod multiple times about the childish act of professional athletes wiping their social media clean so they can get traded, get a better contract. But this team, who is reeling after a 10-1 start, lost 5 out of 6 games, is prepping for a game on the road, has their star wide receiver who's sitting on the sidelines wipe his social media to create a distraction for what? You're a child, A.J. Brown. You are a great receiver, but you are a child. You have teammates in that locker room with you whose livelihood, their families depend on incentives in playoff games. Like, this matters materially to players that had blood, sweat, and tears with you in the trenches. And what do you do to support your teammates? You wipe your social media. For what? For what? And Nick Sirianni, who is like careening out of control, can't get his team a win, and decides on a turf that is easily the worst in professional football that I'm going to put Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown and DeAndre Swift and Devontae Smith and you name it, all your stars, I'm going to put them on the MetLife Stadium field when we all know that Dallas is going to go into Washington and win the division. Nothing's going to change by you beating the hapless Giants. And what happens? Not only do you get embarrassed by the Giants, but you get Reed Blankenship, your starting safety, hurt. You get A.J. Brown hurt, coaching malpractice. And now what? Now you're left with limping into Tampa to get embarrassed by Patrick Michler. I need that on my head tonight. I need Milk to come back at 11:30 drunk, please. So
to cut the
Toby,
White Claws
you
off
know what?
in the
I'm
third
going to
quarter.
amend my opening answer and say that the person I would most like to have a drink with right now is Milk. And I would ask Milk, what's bringing you greater joy? Satan returning to hell, the Cowboys losing, or the Bucks beating the Eagles tonight?
I think his answer is yes.
Yeah. So wait,
I don't see how we
as
do
he-
it.
as
I
he
don't see
pounds
how
a
we
White
do it.
Claw.
I really don't. How do we beat this team? We have the 31st pass defense in the league. We're missing our starting safety, and Mike Evans is a fantastic receiver, let alone Chris Godwin as well. We have an anemic offense, which is predictable, of vertical go routes and quarterback keeper from Jalen Hurts, and we're missing A.J. Brown. Like, I don't know how we score. I don't know how we defend. I don't know. Now, Sirianni can change a lot, in my view, if he pulls this team together tonight. And if he pulls this team together and we pull off a miracle and we go to Detroit and A.J. Brown gets off the sidelines and stops being a baby and shows up next week, okay, these guys can be redeemed. I'm not going to say never, but right now they're both at 1% in my book. I'm so pissed at both of them.
So my question though, why is A.J. Brown mad?
To play
Well,
the
I
game
think he's
plan is
getting the
pissing
ball
him
enough.
off.
Yeah,
Right now,
I mean,
I think that I've heard rumors that
Give me the
he's seen
damn
the
ball.
game. They implemented the game plan during the week, and it's run the ball, run the ball, run the ball at the Bucks.
But can I say something about A.J. Brown? We were able to ignore it because he was ours, but it's pretty clear now. The guy is a quitter. He quit on the Tennessee Titans. He had a same injury that, frankly, he sold the Titans on, believing them that they could get rid of damaged goods, which is why they traded him for basically nothing. But he was never really hurt. He was never that badly hurt. He had no injury problems with us when we got him. He didn't want to be on that team anymore. He quit on them. And we should have known that we were getting a quitter. And not only is he quitting on his team, he's quitting on his best friend. I mean, Jalen Hurts is really one of his best friends. All right, so sometimes it doesn't go the way you want it to go. Get on the field, get open, and make the next play. Make the next play. I cannot believe this is happening. And, okay, if you're hurt, You're hurt. I'm not, if the trainers really say he shouldn't play this game, he says, but what with the social media thing? And Saturday night, after wiping your social media and your players are trying to get ready to go to Tampa, you're seen in Atlantic City at a boxing match? Come on, man. Like, seriously.
Yep.
So it was a little early punch, but yeah.
What is it with the A and Brown receivers?
I don't know. A lot of these wide receivers,
AJ, Antonio,
they go to Diva University, and
they really do.
Yeah.
Which I meant to say this actually, and I'll give you credit. I don't really want to talk about the Commanders very long at all, but you did share with us a season-ending post-mortem at the locker from Terry McLaurin, however you say his last name. That's the way a receiver should talk about their teammates.
Mm-hmm.
That is a leader in the locker room.
Right. Or how about Tyreek Hill?
Non-diva.
How about Tyreek Hill? He may be the most talented wide receiver in football, and all he wants to do is give credit to Tua.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, it looks like we're going to have, by the way, as happy as I am about Dallas losing, I'm not going to lie. The drama in Philadelphia also makes me smile.
Just
a very good week. It's been a very good week.
Winning, Bison.
It's been a great week for the worst two teams in the NFC East.
Yeah, exactly.
We may wind up winning as many playoff games as the two best teams this year.
Honestly, as you sit here right now, which team in the NFC East do you feel like is best positioned for next season moving forward?
Hey, regular season, we got this. Don't worry.
Probably the Commanders and the Giants at this point.
No, we got the regular season. You guys don't worry about that. We'll talk again in the playoffs.
Well, it looks like we're going to have a Bills win. And since that's 53 seconds away by my count here, any thoughts on how Buffalo looked? I mean, how did Josh Allen, how did he make that? I mean, did you see him run away from those guys?
Yeah.
I don't know.
This is the team that we said if they got in, and it was a long shot, but if they got in, they could cause some major problems. And I think they're going to beat the Chiefs. So you're looking at a AFC Championship game, presumably Baltimore and Buffalo.
And Buffalo.
Yeah. I think either one of those.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Rooster.
No, you go. I'm on a different tangent.
I think either one of those teams, Bills or Chiefs, I can't wait for that game now next week. And I think either one of them gives the Ravens all kinds of fits. For sure.
What I was going to say about the Steelers is, doesn't everything we just said about Dallas apply more so to the Steelers? Are they just content every year to win 9 games, get in the playoffs and lose?
Well, that's not fair.
What do you mean that's not fair? What have they done
they don't
since
have Dak
Big Ben left the
Tony
team
Pollard,
to replace
Micah
him?
Parsons. They're playing this
They've
game
won
without
multiple
TJ
Super
Watt.
Bowls since Cowboys have been to the championship.
Yeah, but they're lately they are it seems like every year, somehow they managed to eke out a above 500 season, and now they haven't broken the streak of having consecutive winning seasons. And then if they get in the playoffs, they lose. They need to do better than that.
I don't think the Steeler fans have the same kind of rabid, feelings about their owner. Like,
oh my God, only a Cowboys fan could say that.
Yeah.
Well, they have the same rabid feeling about their team, maybe not hatred of their owner.
No question. They don't hate their owner.
Yeah,
and they're not. And they love Mike Tomlin. I mean, how can you not love Mike Tomlin? Yeah, I agree.
Well, my question, I guess, is why do we love Mike Tomlin? What has he done lately?
Never had a losing season. How many playoff?
Big deal. Neither has in the last 3 years the Cowboys won 12 games. Is that enough?
You wouldn't want to know that your team is always in the mix and you never know what happens in the playoffs. You wouldn't want to know that you start the season every year knowing that you're going to be in the mix, and maybe if you can put it together.
The problem for the Steelers is that since Big Ben retired, they haven't figured out the quarterback position.
Right.
And Tomlin has done some of his best coaching probably since Ben's been gone. If you think about it, but they've got to, like every team in the NFL, you got to get that position right. You just got to get it right, and you're not going to be a Super Bowl contender until you do have it right.
Well, they haven't won a game since 2016 in the playoffs.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
Speaking of coaches, are we talking about NFL coaches too?
Yeah, let's tee that up. So let's get into that, the openings and the firings and all that stuff.
Well,
we got
I saw that you have
Chargers.
me on this, and I have had zero time to prepare for it. But I will say this. No, let me just say this. I think the days of first of all, I think there are going to be a ton of openings, and there's not enough talented people to fill these openings, as far as I can tell, because the days of handing over a head coaching position to a guy like Dan Quinn are over. I mean, I think that Matt LaFleur and Shanahan and Mike McDaniel have shown you can't win with basic offenses in the NFL. You have got to have a very, very, very creative system to win in the NFL. And you can't, I wouldn't hire a defensive head coach right now. I just wouldn't do it. I mean, look what happened with Brandon Staley. I think Harbaugh goes to the Chargers or the Raiders. And after that, who the hell knows? Because I'm not hiring Dan Quinn. I'm not that interested in Belichick. If Mike McCarthy gets fired, I know a lot of teams will want him. I wouldn't want him. If the
maybe he's got the stigma of Dallas, but he's still a good head coach. Maybe with a different culture, he could win.
Well, a lot of these. Bieniemy was 2 years ago. Everyone thought Bieniemy would be a head coach by now. I think he'd be lucky. He's going to be lucky to be an offensive coordinator next year.
Yeah, he shot himself in the foot.
So who are the studs out there right now? People are talking about this Vrabel? Guy from Vrabel. Vrabel is a solid coach who's a defensive guy.
Right, needs a big offensive mind.
Maybe a team that needs some discipline, and he needs to bring in a really hot young offensive coordinator with him. And people are talking about
there's always a chance that he reunites with Arthur Smith, who was his offensive coordinator in Tennessee.
Yeah,
I think one of these jobs may go to Antonio Pierce. I think his little tryout might have earned him a head coaching job, and I think he's deserving of it.
I hope it's the Raiders because he deserves it.
The players are gonna. There might be a little mutiny on that team if they don't hire him. But even if they don't hire him, he should be somebody's defensive coordinator for sure.
But we didn't really know Matt LaFleur and Sean McVay. I mean, maybe Bison did, but most of us didn't know about these obscure assistants. I think Shane Steichen did a great job for Indianapolis this year. There are these guys. They're at Baltimore. They're at Detroit. They're at other places that we don't even know.
And that's who I think is going to get hired. And my point is, I don't like. People are saying Bill Belichick would be the perfect fit in Atlanta. Wow. You really want that guy to be coaching your young? I mean, you're going to draft a quarterback probably.
The thing about Atlanta is I don't see why would he want to go there, right? Doesn't he want to walk into a place where he can win a Super Bowl? He wants to get a Super Bowl without Brady, so he wants to go somewhere where he could. Atlanta's not set up to do that right now, are they?
No,
they could draft if their GM pulled off some deals, they could draft one of the top two quarterbacks and have one of the top running backs and have a pretty potent offense.
They're still a work in progress, though.
Yeah,
they're not knocking on the door. I mean,
and what about Pete Carroll? Don't forget Pete. He wants to coach still.
Yeah, I don't know why he's not.
The
Seattle's talking about Dan Quinn as the replacement. Did you know that? There's some scuttlebutt that Seattle wants Dan Quinn as the replacement. Why replace Pete Carroll with Pete Carroll light? I mean, what's the difference there? Pete Carroll's a successful head coach.
I don't know. It's. I mean, you're right. There's a lot of retreads out there, and there's just a lot of these boomers don't want to go away. It's at everything, and they don't want to go away. But I do think there are certain scenarios like where Belichick would make sense. San Diego may be one of them. The problem is I don't think the owner spends any money there. So I think that, and that might be the San Diego. I'm still doing that with Chargers. And I don't know how that works for Harbaugh going there, right? Because I don't know what kind of contract they're going to give.
But you got to think that Belichick has somewhere between 3 to 5 years left in the tank.
Yeah.
I mean, is that what you
72.
want? Is that what you want? Like,
well, I think what Belichick can give you is he's going to come in, and I heard a lot of talk about this in some other pods, that he's going to build the institution so that it can be run. Like, apparently, I mean, obviously the guy's incredibly successful, but his attention to detail down to who is answering the phones in the organization. I mean, everything. He is a hawk on everything. And they think that he could go into an organization and really help build it out. So there's probably a place or two that could use that.
Yeah, but they're not the ones contending for the Super Bowl.
True.
And he wants to win, what is it, 11 more games, 14 more games?
Yeah, something like that. Well,
I mean, the Panthers could definitely use him. He's not going there.
No,
he's not going to the Panthers. I don't know where he ends up.
I mean, Dallas is not a bad place for him to go if Jerry would just let him do what he wants to do. He'd bring instant respect into the locker room and, trust the process. He and, we'll segue to Saban in a minute, but he and Saban are very similar from that. Trust the process.
Yeah. I think Belichick may have the cachet to say to Jerry, look, if I do this, here are the conditions and you better live by them or I'm out.
Yeah. I mean, that would be epic. I would love to see that shit show. I mean, I think some of the guys who you're hearing a lot about are the two coordinators in Detroit, Ben Johnson, and I can't remember the other guy's name. And then you've got there's Weaver in Baltimore, McDonald in Baltimore. Those are two guys who are thought of as good prospects. So, I mean, there are a number of coordinators, like Toby said, out there that are probably, or we were saying, I think those guys are going to fill the jobs. But there's a lot of jobs. I mean, there's a lot of jobs right now. Carolina, Vegas, LA, Atlanta, Washington, Tennessee, Seattle. New England's been filled, but so there's a lot of opportunity. And by the way,
I'm checking
couple
Twitter
more to come.
see if Jerry's fired McCarthy yet, because
there might be
happen any minute.
Right, there might be 2 or 3 more openings. I mean, is Bowles going to get fired in Tampa, and is Sirianni going to get fired in? Toby, what about Belichick to the Eagles?
I don't see it. I just don't see it. That's not. Lurie likes coordinators. He likes younger guys. He did one experiment like that. I guess the closest thing to Belichick was a Chip Kelly type situation, like a guru, and that was a major bust. Major bust. I think.
But he's not a meddling owner, though.
No, he's not no. I don't see them. Look, if the Eagles are embarrassed tonight, Sirianni's gone.
What about Howie? Any repercussions for Howie?
No, I don't think so. He's done enough. I think Howie's got a lot of power there. But I think if they get embarrassed, Sirianni's gone. I think if they lose very close or if they win, I think he gets one more year. The big problem is he better have a talking with Jalen. All the discussion today is that Jalen was very frustrated at the direction of the offense, and he thinks the offense is too predictable, and he's tried to say word to Sirianni about the direction of the offense, and it was kind of rejected. So I don't know. It's a mess. It is really a mess.
Bison, have we come full circle on the pod? Because in the beginning days, that was always the question: is what's going on with the Philadelphia quarterback situation?
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
3 years ago, that was
it gotten to the point where it was getting a little stale there at the end there.
Yeah, that's right.
They said they're still looking for a quarterback.
That
3 years ago.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We might have to bring it back. So, all right. Anything else on NFL? I guess we have to talk a little college football for a minute, don't we?
We do. I mean, it's a end of an era, not only in the NFL with Belichick, but the college football with retiring of Nick Saban this week after 17 years at Alabama, with probably a record that'll be really hard to match with modern college football the way it is. 6 national championships, 11 SEC championships, 206 and 29 for his record, 44 first-round draft picks, 4 Heisman Trophy winners, and just success after success on the field. And it got to the point where at one point Alabama and Clemson kept swapping national championships, and then it became Alabama, Georgia, and it was redundant, and everybody hated Saban for it. But it's hard to argue with the success he had, and it's a massive loss, obviously, for the Alabama football program. I mean, the 2 icon coaches they've had now, Bear Bryant and Nick Saban, just loom over the program. But I think that they did as good as they could have as far as a hire by getting Caleb DeBoer. Is one of those up and coming coaches. He had 2 great years with Washington. Seems to be one of the better offensive minds in college football now. By all accounts, he wants to respect the past, and he wants to make sure that Saban is still, involved in the program, and Saban would like to be involved in the program. And so hopefully it's a passing of the torch. We can talk about it on another pod, because I think it's a great discussion about how coaches that follow legacy coaches do, because it's not a pattern of a lot of success. But DeBoer will get an opportunity. We're in a new system now with 12-team playoff. There's a lot of expectations for him coming in. He needs to probably go to the playoff next year. He doesn't necessarily need to win a national championship, but it's I didn't expect Saban to retire as soon as he did. Don't know if there's anything other than the fact that he said he's just feeling old, and this year was one of those tough years, and he just didn't feel like he was able to do what he needed to do to get the players ready on a regular basis, and then go out, of course, and recruit and deal with NIL and everything else. So,
Pope, what's the word on DeBoer as a recruiter?
He's a good recruiter.
Bringing his offensive coordinator with him, isn't he?
He's
Who
bringing
also
his OC,
is a good
Ryan
recruiter.
Grubb,
Yeah.
and he's bringing they call him his general manager, Courtney Morgan, who was a stud Michigan guy that went over and helped recruit for DeBoer, and kind of like is just one of those force of personality guys. When he got off the plane, when DeBoer came to Tuscaloosa the night they hired him, the Bama Nation was very happy, because they said this is a good sign that recruits will be looking at, because he's very popular among recruits. They don't have a DC yet. There's some rumors about trying to get a guy that was I think their safeties coach this year, secondary coach this year. I don't think he's going to come. He's going to be with Georgia, co-defensive coordinator, but they need a DC or somebody like that who's strong on recruiting and knows the SEC.
Pope, what is it? What's the reason that Alabama couldn't land their first choice?
Lanning?
Yeah.
So, they will never admit that Lanning was their first choice. The one thing that I haven't talked about is the Jimmy Sexton roulette show. So, Jimmy Sexton, the super agent to coaches, is Saban's agent, Lanning's agent, Norvell's agent, Sarkisian's agent, and he basically got all his clients big raises. Some of them got doubled. And Greg Byrne, the AD, in his press conference said he was actually in Seattle on Wednesday after Saban had said he was retiring. So I don't know if if Byrne was in Seattle, because that way he could go either way to Oregon or Washington, depending on what they were hearing. But it certainly, at one point we were worried that it could be a situation where they had to settle for like a Dan Mullen or somebody like that, who was on the coaching tree, or that did not bring a lot of juice to the program, and that was a concern. I think DeBoer is a good hire. I think he was high on the list. I'm pretty sure Byrne had a go list. I mean, it's not news that Saban eventually would have to retire. So I'm sure they had a program in place that once they got an inkling that he was thinking about retiring, that they put into effect.
All right.
I mean, what do you guys think? You think DeBoer was a good hire?
I think it's a risk, but I think DeBoer is a rebound girlfriend. I think maybe it's an impossible shoes to fill, and I think if you went really super big, and I did hear that they made some play at Lane Kiffin. I don't know if that's true or not.
I don't think so.
But I think they're big enough names that if they went after those names, it could really blow back if it didn't work out. I think this is a relatively low risk move. The guy has a decent pedigree. He's won at pretty much everywhere he's gone. I think what he did with Indiana was very impressive. And if it doesn't work out, it's like, well, who was gonna follow Saban anyway? Now let's get the creme de la creme, whatever, Dabo, whomever else.
Oh God, not Dabo.
Low, whatever. I don't know who is the right, but I just think it's low risk, but it has a very good likelihood, Pope, that what you're dealing with is a rebound girlfriend here.
Yeah, I mean, Tommy Tuberville's out there for.
But I'm just saying, under the circumstances, oh Jesus Christ! Under the circumstances, it was probably the best that they could do.
But what does that? Wait a minute, though. What does that mean? Under the circumstances, was the best they could do? It's supposed to be one of the most prestigious football schools. I mean, I think the thing we're not getting around is
getting a big name to leave a school. You know, like, I mean, and Sarkisian wasn't really a big name, but obviously he's done really well, and Texas, you know, is getting paid very well, and he's ingrained into the Austin scene. He's not going anywhere. I mean, you know, they're not going to get Kirby Smart. They're not going to get Harbaugh's not going to come to Alabama.
I think this is the point I'm making. There's better jobs out there, right?
Well, I mean, I think following Saban is always going to be a risk from a coaching standpoint. So that would be the only reason I say that under the circumstances.
Yeah.
I want to say this, particularly because Milk is not on. He'd be very mad at me for giving a compliment to Saban. But the stuff that I heard unrelated to football, which I never knew, was what was most impressive about Saban. I mean, I think he expanded the enrollment there from like 40,000 to 60,000. The average GPA went up. The amount of money and endowment that came into the school, like he literally changed the face of a university. He upped the average pay to the premier coaches in college, even assistant coaches. Like the ripple effect of this guy for an entire university and an economy of coaches, I don't know that there's going to be another one like him for a while.
Yeah, they call it Sabanomics at Alabama. The chancellor said he was probably worth over $1 billion to the university over the period of time he was coaching, because so many people from out of state wanted to come, and Alabama became a hard school to get into, and out of state tuition is so much more than in state. And they raised their enrollment by almost double.
Crazy.
Yep. All right. Anything else on college football coaches? All right. Who's got a punch?
I already did my punch.
I kind of punched in the beginning.
All right.
Not kind of. I really did punch.
All right. Who's got a lasso?
I have a lasso.
Oh, good. I was like, somebody have something to talk about.
I think this is what the lasso is about. If you guys didn't hear the story about the Detroit GM, this guy, Brad Holmes, this guy, he was like a linebacker for NC-A&T. He got in a very serious car accident in which he was in a coma, suffered a stroke. He graduated ultimately cum laude. He survived that experience where he probably should have died. He started out working at Enterprise Rental Car, and he basically begged his way into becoming a PR intern for the Rams organization. and he climbed the ladder from starting out as a PR intern out of Enterprise Rental Car from a HBCU school, and just kept staying at it and learning the business and learning the organization. And eventually he became the director of their college scouting, and an integral part of their draft, helping them to, make their way all the way to be a Super Bowl contender. And then when Campbell came over, Holmes came with him, and what he's done to build that team. A lot of people were like, what are they doing getting rid of DeAndre Swift and going with Jahmyr Gibbs? What he's done to build that team, and how that team has gone from, I think it was a 0-win team in like 16 or 17 to where they are now is, yes, we gave credit to Dan Campbell early in this, but there's a lot being written now about Brad Holmes, and what a remarkable story. I mean, remarkable story. I don't think there's very many people in the NFL who went from being a PR intern to becoming a GM of a team that put the team back on the map and gave a city like hope again, and just like incredible exhilaration last night. This cool story.
Yeah, good story. Yeah, that is a good lasso. All right, any other lassos? Anybody got buzzer beaters?
I've got one.
Okay.
For the first time in 15 years, the Yukon Huskies are ranked by the AP as #1 in college basketball today.
How many years?
15.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Interesting. Yeah.
And the Heels are #4.
How many national championships do they have in that 15-year period?
One.
Only one?
I don't know. I know they have one.
All right. Yeah, baby. I know. Yeah. All right. Any other buzzers? Toto Wolff signed an extension with Mercedes, stay on for another 3 years.
I said it before. This is my buzzer. I think we are in store for one of the more fun March Madnesses in a while. Last week, I think 4 out of the top 5 teams lost. I just don't think there's anything.
8 of the top 10.
Yeah, anything remotely clear cut. There's going to be upset city, and I can't wait for March to get here so I can get beyond Eagles football.
Yes, well, hopefully that's coming to an end in a few short hours.
Ease
his pain. All right, anybody have anything else?
How many days till pitchers and catchers, Bison?
Oh,
you should know
I think
this.
it's like,
well, it's 73
like
to opening day.
It's like 30 days to pitchers and catchers. I think February 15th or so is when they report.
Who's going to sign Blake Snell?
Could be the Phillies. Could be.
Could be. Probably the Dodgers.
All right. Well, I'd like to
say
say good luck tonight, House, but not really.
Don't.
Yeah, no.
You want the same misery I wanted for you.
Yes,
I respect
exactly.
that.
Goodbye.
Anybody
Go
but the
Birds.
Eagles at this point for me.